Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. I thank the Minister for his detailed statement and assure him the Education Committee will continue to work with him towards ensuring guidance and support for our schools and pupils to maintain equal educational opportunity at this time. The Minister's failure to address post-primary transfer in this statement will cause as much anger as his ill-considered welcome of the inadequate 2-week delay to post-primary transfer tests scheduled for November and December of this year. Despite the dedicated and creative work of teachers and parents, it goes without saying that children will be experiencing distance and blended learning in different and unequal ways. So can I ask the Minister how he can justify his support for the requirement of children to sit transfer tests in November and December of this year, and what contingency plans are in place should it not be possible to sit those tests?
Well, I thank the member for his support. Can I say, in terms of the remote learning, we're trying to ensure through link workers and also through there will be a key focus. I know it was raised by one of the trade union officials this week at committee that indeed the focus, particularly for ETI, needs to be particularly on the pedagogy and resources available in terms of remote learning. That clearly is where the focus will be of ETI in trying to ensure there's a level of as much consistency as possible. It is also the case, as indicated, in terms of trying to create as much of a level playing field on remote learning as possible. As indicated, where there are gaps on the issue, particularly of digital resources, the aim is to close those as much as possible. Can we ensure that there will be precisely a level playing field for everybody, or that everybody will be in exactly the same place? No, I don't think anybody can. I think that is the nature of things. As indicated, I think in terms of the choices that are there, it is clear that as much certainty needs to be provided as possible. This is not an ideal situation in terms of post-primary transfer, but we do have a situation where, first of all, academic selection, and the member, myself, indeed others, will disagree over the merits of this, but is something which schools can use as a means for dealing with oversubscription in terms of selection. It is also the case then that if there is academic selection is available, it is clear that from the robustness of data that it is difficult to see another route in which there is a level of robust data which can be used for academic selection other than a test. And thirdly, that in terms of timing, whereas I appreciate the very genuine concerns that are out there in terms of timing, it is the case that, that if things were simply pushed back to a much later date, that given the complexities of the processes which need to take place for moving from the point at which results are issued to final placements, that working alongside those and examining those dates, it appears likely that that would mean that placements would not be able to be made until the middle of July. And given the fact, and I suspect we will have inevitably a higher level of appeals put in place, a situation in which that would lead then to appeals possibly going into the middle of October. Now, if we're saying in terms of certainty for children, in terms of providing as fair and as balanced a position to children as possible, a situation in which some children would not know their post-primary school until some point at which they would already be in Year 8, I think is not one which I think is acceptable. That sort of timeline is not one that is there, which I think is where the driver is. Now, as with officials, we will look to see if there's anything that can be done to tighten that timetable and make that better. This is on the basis of if you're having exams, for instance, in January. But it is very difficult to take a great deal of time out of the process. There's a range of, I think, 14 or 15 measures that need to take place between even the results being issued and the final moment of placement. It's very difficult to take sufficient time out of that to make that workable if there's a post-Christmas exam schedule on that basis. So I think that it is probably the least worst option that is there at present, notwithstanding, I think, the wider argument that people will have over whether they use academic selection or not.
Mr Little.
Thank you, Principal Deputy Speaker. This isn't about the Minister and I's disagreement in relation to academic selection. This is about thousands of 10 and 11-year-old children across Northern Ireland and their best interests. I've been inundated by people who disagree profoundly that transfer tests should be set during a global health pandemic. So can I ask the Education Minister, will he use his legislative powers to pause the use of these tests for post-primary transfer in 2020-21 if no alternative can be found, as he suggests?
With respect, I've said there is an alternative that is there. If the member is saying, will I be using power to ban academic selection? No, I will not. And the reality will be, well, with respect on it, the member is in danger of saying one thing and meaning another thing. Because, frankly, if you're saying, take powers to stop academic selection for this year, you're talking about banning academic selection. If the member wants to abolish all grammar schools, let him at least have the courage of saying that. Alternatively, if he doesn't, then provide another means by which selection, because there will be schools that will be oversubscribed, by which selection can then take place. Because it is all very well, and everybody is aware of the concerns that are there on this particular set of modalities, to say, stop it this year, do not do this, but not to provide an alternative to what is there. And I appreciate there will be different views in terms of academic selection, to plunge pupils into the void of not knowing what will actually replace that. If we are saying that certainty is the key message that needs to be got for pupils and for parents, to announce something simply of an abolition without anything in its place, I think would be highly irresponsible.
Mr Little, you got to ask your question. The Minister should have been allowed to answer without being interrupted from you in a sedentary position. That's